a grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lads.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.
Morning, folks. Very welcome along to the Irish Examiners Hurling Show. Break week next week, so a bit of a, I suppose, funny time really. Yesterday and Saturday were teams flat to the mat. Were they having a look? Certainly the next round, I think we'd see a lot of championship teams out, and yet there's one constant, and that's Limerick, who are just popping in, lads, in and out, lads. Very welcome, lads. The two buckles, as usual, and delighted to be joined by Portro's finest, Mr. Liam Sheedy. How are you, Liam?
Great day on yourself. All good?
Not too bad now. It seems with Packy Dillon's 40th birthday cruise on a Saturday. I'm kind of okay Monday morning, I suppose, yeah. But it was a fair day. Like when you're not in the 40s bracket, let's say, and you go off on a 40th, and it leaves Bucky Browns at half one, Liam, I'll tell you.
It's a long day.
Would you want to be putting your own stamp of authority on things, like, you know? And when a few of the fellas in their 30s are going in ordering bottles of Coors Light for the first couple of drinks, and you were saying, pint of butter.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it, isn't it? Go in big. Go in big. Now we'll have some fella tweeting about, we're too much talking about gambling, we're too much talking about alcohol and all this. But anyway, this is the show, and you're welcome along, folks. So delighted to have Liam, delighted to have Marco, delighted to have Teach. Lads, I wrote a kind of a hard-hitting article for today. Is about the league, I suppose. I have been beating this drum. I'm not backing down on it. I wasn't at games, I have to say, over the weekend. I caught up now between the pub here and the cruise. And for me, the 12,000 people that paid into Salt Hill yesterday evening, 18 quid a head, to be an hour and a half in traffic, or an hour and 50, as John Mullane told me. He was doing co-commentary for RT, so he probably had to stay a bit longer. But I'm not getting it. I don't know the whole competition. Is it a series of taking my own county into overall context? We go through the games, like, you know, didn't show up in the Gaelic grounds, then put on a wow performance down in Wexford Park yesterday, and you knew nearly by the naming of the team Friday night that might be the case. And it's just the overall, we're going to have to try and do something with the competition, lads, whether it's tighten up the game number of games and have a 4-week break before the final to the first round of the championship or something. I'm just not getting it as it is. TJ, you were insulted.
I was, Dalo. It's very hard to argue with you. Go along with all those points in a couple of games. I suppose we've come to know hurling as a sport where it's kind of blood and thunder, great games, counties having a good hop off each other, and we haven't seen that yet in the league. We have seen phony teams. We've spoke about all the different things that managers are looking at. They want to get their house in order for April, but it's not doing justice maybe to two counties having a right pop off each other at this time of the year. And I don't know. As you said there, on Friday night when the teams are named, in this particular game, it looked like Limerick named a very strong team, and you felt that, let's say, with Galway, they didn't name as strong a team. I think they had about maybe 6 starters that didn't start, and the game kind of went along those lines, those patterns. Limerick started well, but in the bigger picture, I just don't know. Like, even from right now, Limerick have put themselves in a good position to qualify, and maybe some teams will say, do I want to play Limerick in a league semi-final, or do I want to end up playing Limerick in a league final 2 weeks prior to championship? I suppose the reason you're asking those questions to bring the league forward is, if you played Limerick in a league final and let's say things didn't go your way, I think in a 3 or 4 week window, you would have a chance to change and do stuff. Whereas, as we well know, in that 2 week window where you have your 3 or 4 taper days after a league final and then your 3 or 4 taper days into the first round of the championship, that leaves you a really, really small window to make any changes. And I think if we go back to last year's league final between Waterford and Cork, and all of a sudden some of the games that we're seeing now actually happened in the league last year as well, except you don't remember them. You just remember the league final. So I'm not sure what the answer is. I think was it Shane McGrath had some kind of an idea there. Could you link the league and maybe give some sort of reward, championship points to whatever the league winners, whatever? Is that bonkers? I don't know. The league is obviously a national competition, a nice competition to win. So I do think there's some change needed, but like most people in this country in the moment with lots of things, I know what the problem is, Dalo, but I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, and like the two Morrises were interviewed afterwards, and eloquent guys, like just like their dad, top men to speak. But Dan said, "Well, I'm very glad I have 2 league medals in my pocket as a medal, and I don't have one." And definitely. But I do wonder, Liam, you were in Croke Park. I'm just wondering about overall, Liam, before we get to specifics on the various games. So overall, it seems to be lethargic.
Yeah, well, the problem is, Dale, the gap between the final and the first round, like everything hinges on the weekend of the 23rd of April. Like that's where ultimately teams are delivered. So, if you lose that first game straight away, you're on the back foot. So I think, as much as there's teams that are, as you said, I think they're targeting certain matches where they're going for performances because, each of them will want to get to a stage where, you want to get to 12 or 13 of your starting 15 nailed down and in position come the end of the league. And you're probably seeing, like, it's probably suiting someone like Liam Cahill. So he's got a chance to really go after. You've seen Conor McCarthy, and again Johnny Ryan is starting to settle a little bit. So for somebody that has a broad array of talent, even aside of the people that he's missing, he's probably using the league where he's getting a real chance to test fellas. I think it's at the minimum, we should do away with the semi-finals and let the top person in each group, and you get a week back. That week back is obviously, that to me is a no-brainer. And I even think people, they have an off week next week. Certainly if I was managing any of the counties there now, I'd much rather play next week and get an extra week at the end, would be my view. Because the more time you get, to me, to switch from league to championship, I think you need a minimum of 3 weeks, to be honest with you. And I think we're undervaluing the league the way it's structured currently. And you can't blame managers, because ultimately when, we haven't won the league in tips since 2008, but ultimately you'll be measured at the end of the day in terms of how successful you are come Munster Championship and All Ireland Championships. That's where the bar is, and again, for all of good Waterford's good work last year winning the league, I don't think anyone will be talking much about their victory in the league when they ended up getting booted out of the championship and didn't make the top 3 in Munster. So that's the debacle that each county are faced with. And I'm not so sure. I don't think what we have right now is the answer, and I think we have to give them more time. I think managers, and there should be really good dialogue. I think too much of it is sort of made around big tables up in Croke Park, when actually they should be involving people that are in the game, involved in the game. I think they should get more of an input from the managers and the people that play, because I think anyone would tell you, look, give us 3 weeks and we'd be happy. So that's my top and forth.
Liam, one of the flip sides of the argument then would be commercially, right? And certainly some of the games, like as Dalo said, there are 12,000 people, and let's say it's €18 to go in. I know some of those were kids. And the Limerick Clare game, Limerick Cork game, and some of the other games, the game in Nolan Park, like commercially then, like because of, let's say, the huge appetite since last July, it is working. That's a big argument their side now.
Well, you wouldn't say it was working if you're in Croke Park on Saturday night, TJ. There was nobody in.
Okay.
You had a double header there, and I'd say it didn't wash its face. So like, I think you have, when you get the right, teams. I mean, obviously, there was a big appetite for Limerick and Clare because of what they had produced the previous year in championship. Everyone was named, the stand was sold out. But in the main, where I don't know, is it really adding up commercially? How long,
Liam? How long will it, like Limerick Clare? Yeah, easy venue for both, a home venue for Limerick and almost a home venue for Clare, and then the appetite of last year. But like we were there, we were on the sideline. There wasn't a murmur. The match was that poor. Clare were that poor on the night. There wasn't a murmur in the stands. No, I think people might vote with their feet next year.
Yeah, and €18 is saucy enough too. It's a big expense. If there's 3 or 4 going. It's not a cheap night out, and as you said, luckily we have people that are fanatical about our sport. But they'll also, as you said, will get to work out, are they getting the quality of action? And at stages yesterday, watching Limerick and Galway, it felt like it had a challenge match feeling to it. Like it just didn't feel like it. Now the flip side of that is we were on the sideline. I would say we got a really good game last year in the league between Galway and Limerick in the Gaelic grounds there. Like that, so it's a little bit hit and miss. But I think you can't blame managers. Ultimately, they're going to be measured on when that Munster Championship starts, and no matter how successful or unsuccessful they are in the league, if they win round 1 and round 2, their championship. They're more or less looking like they're in the top 3, and then it's all systems go. So it's about trying to get the balance right. I think some of the newer managers, Micheál Donoghue and Liam Cahill, are probably delighted they're getting to see a little bit of new talent, getting a chance to test lads. But in the main, I think we have to. I would go straight knockout to the final. Get an extra week back, because I think having that 3 weeks is what, if you had 3 weeks gap, I think you've cracked it. I think that's as much as anyone would want.
Marco, you didn't go in to see Westmeath and Cork. You went in to see the football though last week when the Dubs were in town. So that maybe tells your story as well in some ways. But just go back to Liam's point. I think the new managers, and you have one of those in Pat, and you're top of the hoop now. You're streaking ahead with the National League at the moment, and look, we're delighted for that. It really makes this show when Cork are top of everything, to be honest, Joe. But is it like, let's say look at Darragh Egan. Let's say look at Darragh Egan now, right? And good time frame. We know him. Liam would know him better than the rest of us. I know him, and a good sound man and good hurling man, and would have done so much about the Killadangan story. And yet he won every game in the league last year in his group, and ultimately though he lost out in the quarterfinal near the end of it because he hadn't the depth in the squad, and he was down a few genuine lads yesterday. So he had to go out. Then Lohan's after coming off, getting a bit of stick. It's not only a small bit in Clare for the Limerick performance. And Lohan says, hey, we need John Conlon now, see how he's going, and we need Kelly, and one or two little things. Is that the case? Like, is it just the new managers are delighted? Like, I'd say Micheál Donoghue, even though he lost by 4 points, 5 points, I'd say he'd be happy enough. Like, I watched the highlights now last night, and it looked like they had plenty of it, and the ultimate worry for him is the Donald Burke injury, I think, at the end of it. But, he saw a fair bit. And as a new manager, that's what it's about. Whereas Brian Lohan, 4th year, it's tested here, tested there.
Yeah. So there's a good bit in what you said there. I suppose the first thing is that I would say that most new managers are always under the microscope straight away and they'll be their worst critics themselves straight away, because they're all successful guys themselves, whether they were players or whether they're in business, when they're coming to manage a team. So they will measure themselves, I think, on success. Also, they'll have to, I suppose, look at the fact of what they're doing behind the scenes, what are their expectations. And I think, if you go through a couple of the new managers, I suppose Pat Ryan is definitely trying to blood. We say a lot of the lads that won 2 All-Irelands from the under-20s with him. And like it's amazing how one victory, particularly the first game against Limerick, could alter the way you think about things. Like, if we lost that game, we'd have been going to Galway on the back foot, hoping for a result. After 20 minutes above in Galway, Cork were down 1-9 to 1-3, and if you were after losing your first round, you'd be on the back foot definitely, and then you'd be putting out a strong team against Westmeath to try and recuperate maybe some last round. The funny thing is, having beaten Limerick now in the first round, then all of a sudden taking over after 20 minutes in Salt Hill, and then Pat is allowed to put out what I would say is, and I don't want to say experimental, but he has certainly thrown the net wide. He's played 29 to 30 players already in the league after 3 matches. Now, I don't know the stats on any other team at the moment as to how many players they have tried, but I think it has been a massive success at this moment in time for Pat. And to think that he played with, say, Hannity, Hoggy, Robbie Flynn, Conor Lahan, Dickie Dalton, Alan Cadigan over the weekend in the forward line, and still able to amass 221 and probably hit an awful lot of wides as well. I think he'll be delighted with his troops at the moment, because Pat is, I suppose, if Cork happen to get to the league final, he has a 4-week gap, I think, to the first round of the championship. So I think they probably are concentrating on the league. Then when you flip it over to Liam Cahill, I would say, he came in, obviously, has a lot of experience with Waterford, tip of plenty players, particularly like Cork as well. I'd say, very, very good underage structures. And it was just a case of, getting stuck into him, really. And unfortunately, in Liam's scenario, he has lost a couple of players through injury recently. Cork have a lot of fellas on the sideline, but I'd say they're about to come back. So I think from that point of view, it's great. But like Liam Cahill has solidified the whole Tipperary thing, because look, there's a bit of a hangover after last year, and I think he has got rid of that immediately. Now, I suppose Liam, you were in Crow Park the other night, and maybe the Tip supporters still probably need a little bit more convincing, I suppose, in terms of going to matches and stuff like that. But I've no doubt that like,
More
your
sandwiches,
supporters will get back in. What's that?
More sandwiches, you mean?
Well, it's a Saturday night, like they're probably the
They're not staying over and over. Yeah. You see the prices of hotels in Dublin. Will you go here?
Yourself now, fellas getting in around the M50 and stuff like that. Like they only like go to Thurles most of the time. So, I'm just to comment on Donald Burke, lads. What a player! And we've had him now for the last 3 years. We're watching him in the fantasy hurling team, and I'm looking at the top of the leaderboard, Dalo. There's a lot of fellas. The hurler in the ditch now, and a few more than fellas. They all have Donald Burke on their team, which just shows you that there are tremendous hurlers. And just to mention Killian Doyle then on the Westmeath side as well. There are brilliant hurlers everywhere. It's just trying to give them the platform. And I think, you can go with your Westmeaths and your Antrums and your Leashes and stuff like that, right? Like those teams, I think I'm impressed with Antrim so far this year. I think they have put in massive performances with very little rewards yet. So I think in the overall context, I think any new manager is trying to put his best foot forward, and he is trying to get the most out of the panel. But he ultimately knows that tis the championship he's going to be judged on.
Would you give 3 weeks back to the All-Ireland, Mark? I won't ask you again for the rest of the year. The split season. Would you give no? Not to make the second biggest competition in Ireland, inter-county-wise, National Hurling League, to give it a bit more status.
But should Anthony, the Six Nations and rugby is played over 7 or 8 weeks. Like, and to just get on with the matches. And there's fellas out injured every second week, and you just have to build up your panels. Like, ultimately, it's up to, I suppose, all the counties to build their panels as big as they can. And don't be like, there's definitely a culture in the GA, oh, geez, we can't play without this fella, and we can't play without that fella. Time moves on, players move on. You just have to build your panel as big as you can. I think the club is fundamentally the most important thing. I see Pat Ryan is releasing all the inter-county players back to the club next weekend for the first round of the leagues. And like, there's a lot of managers that would not allow their inter-county fella back to the club in case he got injured. But lads, it's a game of hurling. They're amateurs. And they have lives. They need to get on with their lives as well. They're not fellas on £1 million a week in the soccer and the Premiership and stuff like that. So I think, don't put massive pressure on players. Get the best out of them and keep them happy.
Well, Liam, there's your answer anyway as to why it's not going ahead next week, because the first round of the Cork County League is obviously someone, the higher echelons of Cork GA, has had a word with Crow Park to say, we are starting our league.
Yeah, but hey, come here. It is ridiculous to think that there's been 2 free weekends given up to the league now so far. And all managers, I've no doubt, are crying out that they want the league finished a week earlier. And maybe, as the two lads have already, and we suggested this earlier on the pods, that there should be no semi-final. And if there wasn't a semi-final, it might mean that AS games might be a bit more cutthroat. Now, there would be dead rubber games, I presume, as well, in the last match if there was only one coming through. So maybe the powers that be are looking at that as well, Anthony.
Yeah, and as I told you before in this pod, what drama! I never forget 2011 Bimblow playing Cork. We had to beat Cork. I was with the Dubs. We had to beat Cork, but we also needed Waterford to beat Galway, and it was like something you'd have on Sky Sports News, deadline day nearly. And Finn McGarry, who was the sub goalie, came running down along the sideline. He says, Waterford are a point up, Dalo. I said, you shut up, I'm trying to watch this, we're only a point up. But the drama and the whole thing, and then there was a pitch invasion from a good few Dublin supporters who actually went to the game, the diehards, afterwards, because they didn't know whether we're in, out. We beat Cork, sure, but Galway probably beat Waterford. No, Waterford were after beating, fairness to Davy, he was in charge of Waterford. Do you a favour, kid? He texted me in the morning, so you do your own business now, I said. But the drama of that, like, alone was. Now you won't always get that, but that was great. And there's no need of semi-finals. And I would concur on, despite now Pat Ryan not being allowed to release lads back to their clubs, the proud clubs of Cork that have dominated the Munster Club Championship in the last 20 years and have come storming through to win the Tommy Moore Cup most of the time, down Newtown since the 70s. But look, we think we're all agreed that the mind your break weeks.
Hey, come here to me. See, there's one jersey there now.
You know, you're getting
direct,
serious
right?
when he says, "Come here to me, lads."
Hey, see the other Genzi there, Team Viewer, United. We haven't won a
What's
cup
that?
in 7 years.
Move
We've had
ahead.
about a half a dozen new managers, right? We had to get rid of Ronaldo, and now we're after winning the first trophy. So, Dalo, it takes a little bit of time to get back on a level footing. But United now, a bit like Cork, we're starting to come now. We have one cup already in the bag, like, you know.
The Milk
The
Cup.
Munster Senior League, so we'd be. I
The Mickey Mouse Cup, yeah, that's the one.
Right now we're going all out for the second cup now this year.
Come here. Are they 3 United? No, that's a United jersey, and there's 2 Cork jerseys.
That's Sports Direct on the left.
Sports
anyway.
Direct. He sold your
That's
soul, of
it,
course.
that's it, Liam, right? It's all red.
And
There's 2 United ones there. I do a bit of swapping around.
Is there 2 Liverpool
That's a
ones
football
in the house
jersey.
too, though?
I have a few Liverpool fellas, but they come here. They wouldn't be allowed up there today.
What about your man in the top
Go
corner there
Liverpool.
on the right?
And come here, I supposed to get tickets for Liverpool United next weekend, and the friggin' fella who was promising me to get them failed to deliver, Dalo. He failed to deliver. So anyone out there, I'm looking for 4 Liverpool United tickets. I know it's a big ask. I have two Liverpool supporters and 1 United. So we've some crack yesterday, I can tell you now, watching the final.
Yeah, whatever about the poor people in the world and the people who've come through earthquakes and everything else, if you could try and think of the Landers family for next weekend, somebody out there, could you please help?
Just building on what Marco said about Donald Burke, Dalo. He was a joy to watch on Saturday night last. You know, he was, I think it was 61 or 2 minutes he lasted. Like he picked off 7. Like his radar it's so hot. Like he just needs a half a chance. And there were long range points. He really hurt Tipperary. You know, Tip wanted to keep their structure, and they sort of sat and held the line. But his movement across the line and his striking is impeccable. And he's, you know, he really was a joy to watch. But you know, there's probably
Did you see a bit from Dublin, Liam? I didn't know, you see, because you know they struggled with the Antrim game, and we all are in agreement on this podcast. I think that Antrim are showing signs that they'll be well able to compete in Leinster. And again, yesterday against Waterford, played well. They struggled to beat them, but they beat them. They drew with Waterford, but the caveat being Waterford were down to 13 men, and then should you be beating 13 men. But I was interested now on Saturday evening. Didn't see it. Thought it was going to be on TV. Pity it wasn't. Somewhere we could even subscribe to it. You know, I wasn't going to Club Park, like, but I would love to put it on, you know, Booze Cruise or no Booze Cruise, whatever pub we were in. I'd have paid your man 30 quid to put on the match. Sat down and watched it, because when that drivel of Ireland and Italy was over, I'd love to watch the hurling match, like, you know. But did you see a bit from Dublin that Micheál be encouraged?
Yeah, I did. Like, you know, as I said, they have one of the best forwards in the game at the moment in Donald Burke, without question. 7 points in play, some return. So Alex Considine was on the inside line. Now, Brian O'Mara was on him, so Brian was playing inside. And he probably blocked him down 3 times, which is a little bit school by error from Alex Considine point of view. He threw it up and Brian was on him like a rocket. They had a goal chance in the first half that was hooked. Brian O'Mara got in a great hook. They needed that goal, and they had a 2-on-1 late on and messed it up in the second half. And if they did get a goal at any stage, some of their wides were very poor, Dalo. Some of their striking, like they're outside of Donald Burke, they're not the crispest group of strikers when they get that half a chance, like other counties. And they lacked a bit of backup. But I thought Alex Considine was a big plus with his 3 points in play, because he was decent against Waterford as well in the first round. He missed out in round 2 with an injury. But you know, I think there's an over reliance still on Donald Burke. And if that's a hamstring injury and he's gone for 4 or 5 weeks, that could certainly impede him significantly, because they need a fit Donald Burke. But I think Micheál knows that I think what caught Dublin under Matty was that they were using the same 18 or 19 player. So Micheál has broadened the web a little bit, and I think he'll have been encouraged. You know, it was a 5-point game, and it could have been, you know, with some of their chances. And if they get a goal and convert some of their chances, it could have been a whole pile closer. There was only a point in it at half time. So I think Micheál has a lot of positives he'll take out of the game. And from Tip's perspective, you know, I think Donald Burke got an awful lot of room. So like they'll be concerned that Ronan wants to sit. But actually, you know, he wasn't really getting the protection from outside. So they'll be disappointed with that aspect of the game when they look back. But again, they didn't concede a goal. They tried Brian O'Mara full back, so Mikey Breen is probably not too unlike Callum Lyons in terms of his athleticism. So I don't know, maybe Mikey and Liam have it in their head that maybe could they get a Mikey Breen into that role where he's driving forward from the half back line. Most teams, you see Kyle Hayes at it as well yesterday. But I think their number 3 position, I didn't think Brian O'Mara attacked the ball as the out and out full back where he'd go in front. I don't like. He's probably a bit nervous.
Would he have played there, Liam, at any stage? Like, I don't remember Brian O'Mara playing there.
No, I like he's a class act. He's definitely going to be in the backs with Tip. But I think the question right now for Tip is, do you go back and push Ronan back in there, or is the Mikey Breen experiment going to continue in there, or could Ronan go back in? I thought he was outstanding for me in 2019 on the edge of the square, and we moved him back in for the All Ireland series. Because I think Brian O'Mara across 5, 6, or 7 is a gem, and is a class act. So I think the conundrum for Tip is just to try and find the 3 position. Again, there was good performances. Johnny Ryan was good again. And I think that Tip have a lot of energy at the moment. I mean, Liam Cahill and Mikey Beavens have really put their stamp on that group, and they're bringing a huge energy and intensity to the game, which means, they haven't been dealt an easy pack either, Dalo. Like they've had injury after injury, Kieran Connolly announced last week now that he's gone for the year as well. You still have Craig Morgan and Barry Heffernan out. Carl Barrett's out for a long number of weeks. Paddy Cadell is gone for the season. But, there's no doubt about it. Liam still has a lot of talent that's in that pool from those young lads that he had in the 21 and the under-20s team. So I think Tip will be really, really happy. And, I think is it transition or is it transformation? Only time will tell. But I think it's looking like a transformation right now. And they might transition quicker than people think.
It'll be transition after the 23rd day of April in
line us up, Dalo.
Bring the sandwiches, Cat.
Yeah. And isn't that the thing though, Dale? Like, that's a massive match for Brian and for Liam. Because the winner of that game can look forward and say, okay, win another one, now we're probably in. The loser of that game, and it's backs to the wall straight away. So that's a massive match. And
it's actually probably a bigger game for Brian in season 4.
Plus
season 4 as well. Yeah. Oh no, look, there's no doubt about it, and that is the reality. That Brian knows his team. He's trying to maybe tweak one. Shane Morey's back. Mark Rogers coming in. Probably needs a break after winning nearly the under-21A championship. They were good, very good team, Scariff Gunlow, but they won it just before Christmas, straight into UL, trying to play Munster League. If any young fella needs a break next weekend, I'd tell him go away yesterday evening, getting off the bus from Wexford, and say, I'll see you towards the week. I honestly do think that'd be good theory. Can it be done then, looking at other fellas in the eye who have given you the same commitment? That's a balancing act. That's good management, isn't it? And that's where belief in your manager comes into play. That other players will say, yeah, he's right, Rogers does need a break. Just a break. And he's only young lad, but that's where it's at. And it's about handling that. And you're right, I think Liam Cahill has been handed a very heavy load already, with injuries and she's ultimately the Dillon thing, before anything started. It's just incredible stuff. But he's the type of guy that will move on and drive on. And there is energy and Tip. There's no doubt about that. And I thought from a Dublin point of view, looking at it, I was fearful a bit that Tip would love the lights, Crow Park, the open spaces. And I kind of delighted with the Dubs in one way that they matched up. And man, as you said, if a goal was to come, they might have been thereabouts, and they still were thereabouts. But for my, just wearing a little bit of a Dublin colour, having a graph from that they matched up, and I think, don't know who's as well as Liam Cahill is on the start of an extended term in charge, and he's building, and he's going to be building. Just want to ask you, Danny Sutcliffe, how was he? Was he off it? Was he on it, or was he?
Look, you know what I mean. He wasn't really. He wasn't at his absolute best. But would you give Danny Sutcliffe a little bit more training and matches under his belt? I think we all know what he'll bring. Played him in sort of a more central role as well, and I think he'll probably end up out in that wing. And if you were Dublin goalie and you're poking that ball down on top of the half-hour line, you'd be very happy. But I thought Dublin's overall distribution from the goals was very good. Again, on Saturday night, Dara Gray was very, very effective at wing back, got on a lot of ball and broke the line. And I thought they were good to break the line, get it to the extra man, and then flash in good ball. Like there was a bit of purpose about Dublin now the other night. But again, look, Tip were full value for their victory. And Jason is unerring, but I think the big plus again, like Alan Tynan is starting to find his feet. Obviously he was gone to rugby for a number of years. He's back now. He got 2 nice points again the other night. Definitely Gerard O'Connor at centre forward. He gives Tip an option of the long ball, poke it down the top of him, and he plucks it out of the sky. He's a real big physical presence. And Mark Keogh, he's been sort of chipping away for the last few years. What I think it looks like maybe this year he might be ready to kick on a bit. He got 3 great points and he made a great run for the goal. So that fella has a bit of class about him too. So no, Liam will be delighted coming back down. As you said, he's unbeaten. But there's a real purpose about what they're trying to do, and there's a very, very strong competitive panel, even though he has been hit with some cruel blows in terms of injuries.
Yeah. And I think that ultimately, as I often said in this show, the great Sir Lyons used to say, you'll be judged in June, mister. He used to say, if you have a bad league game. Now we can't say that anymore because June is probably the All-Ireland semi-final and Mark is happy with that. So we won't go there again anyway for the rest of the show. TJ, Salt Hill, traffic. But you would car pass, TJ, surely.
Like I said to Dalo, I always get well looked after in Galway, and they actually part of what they're trying to do is they had a business event on before the game as well yesterday. So
speaking
again, my buddies, yes. So yeah, before the game, and the big news coming out of Galway this week is their minor situation changing. Obviously, their minor team playing in the Leinster Championship. I think is good news for them, and it's going to be more competitive, and it's probably more level playing field. There's a possibility for some of the teams in Leinster, it'd probably make a Leinster minor championship that be more difficult. But
any chance their club champions would go into the Munster club championship or the Leinster club championship, or does that not suit?
I couldn't say it doesn't suit, because like if you want to have the level and playing field across the board, I suppose. But I was going to say with the minors is where you have, let's say, minors. Let's say in other counties in Leinster and Munster trying to get ready for March dates and trying to get their house in order, and then you have a team waiting in the wings doing all the video analysis and all these games and sitting, like it's just wasn't a level playing field. I think maybe in the longer term it'd be better. I think they'll find out more about their minors for the future in terms of having these games rather than coming in at a late stage and getting that.
You couldn't say that they weren't winning enough minors and 21s and stuff.
No, I think it was unfair both sides. As I said, them having to wait, they didn't have to put as much emphasis on the early part of the season. They could come with a later run, allow their guys play colleges and everything. Whereas, let's say, in other counties, as you well know, Dalo underage, where you were challenging, let's say, teams playing Harty Cups and all things happening at the same time, it just made life a little bit easier for them. So this is something different. And to be honest, they're looking for us and they're welcoming it. So that was kind of one of the discussion points. So it'll be a watch this space for a couple of years to see what was it good for the GAA, good for Galway, good for teams in Leinster. I suppose the reality now is I think it was.
I agree with you. I'm just going to I agree with you totally, and I think they should be in there. But I also think their club, because we're big club people here, obviously, and Mark makes that point very clearly. I think their club champions, because they don't have a provincial championship to play in, should either be going up the north, playing in the Northern Championship, because you'll have good down champions, good Antrim champions, and as we've seen with Schlockneil last few years, the Ulster Club Championship is really competitive, and they just get a free pass into the Ireland semi-final. I don't agree with that. You can't have it everywhere. You can't want your minors getting good games, but your club champions, though, you can play a replay. Give a 2-week break between your draw and county final and your replay, and sure, we've no rush because there's no Connacht championship to play for.
Yeah, I don't think that any of the clubs will have any problem with that. I think they would welcome the opportunity, whether it's wherever they play.
They should push for that as equally as they have for the minor getting into the All Ireland or into the Leinster Championship.
But it's hard to believe, Anthony, that it has taken so long for the minors to get into Leinster with the seniors and the under-20s already playing in Leinster. Why did it take so long for the minors to actually get there?
Well, look, I'm not the authority on this at all. Like I'm just saying, I suppose if you were the Offaly minor manager last year, Leo O'Connor, and you knew you had a right good team, did you need Galway inside there as well as Kilkenny? And you were trying to make a breakthrough, So I'm just saying, make it level. Don't have your club county champions. Don't have Killa winning the Cork Championship and having to face into Gary Spillane, Portroe and Clarecastle before they come out of Munster, and have St. Thomas's or Loughrea or Portumna getting straight into an Ireland semi-final.
Yeah, I see your point. It's just, I suppose the point I'm making to you is that it takes the GAA an awful long time to probably make decisions. And we saw that with the All-Ireland Club final this year. The rigmarole that the teams had to go through before replay was awarded. when everybody knew the rules were broken, and the GA should have stepped in and made the change. It should be the GA at top level should be encouraging or should be saying to the Connacht Senior Championship for the Galway, this is only going to be, we'll say, the Galway champions. Right, lads, you're going into whatever province to play your club hurling from next year on. Show leadership from the top.
We need a 2/3 majority. And that's why the man in the top left-hand corner of the screen should be in charge of the thing, if you ask me. Because it'd be a bit of common sense, I think, of the hurling football players' mentality going into the thing. But anyway, TJ, yes, back to your corporate event first before you watch the match.
I like going to Salt Hill, Dalo. The traffic I can stick with, and the wind actually, believe it or not, yesterday was blowing in the other direction. It was blown away from the sea. But to be fair, I said, look, in fairness to Galway, with a lot of things structurally they're trying to do, they're trying to get an awful lot of things right for the future, and a lot of coaching things going on there at weekends. So I would say they're trying to get an awful lot of stuff right. Back to the field and the game. Like, just touching on what Liam was on about there about Donald Burke, let's say, and the way Tip were trying to set up. There's an awful lot of structural views as to how teams are setting up against each other now, and you see fellas in loads of space, and you're wondering what's going on. And there's some of it might be tactically bonkers, I think, right? As in, it's not working, and then you're trying to make sure that there's certain individuals, let's say, maybe man-marked or maybe not having a big influence in the game. And then you're ending up maybe inside in the stand and you're looking out in the field like yesterday and you're seeing Kyle Hayes in 50 yards of space and nobody near him and he pops over 3 points of play and you're kind of saying, Jesus, what is going on here? Like, so there's a little bit of that kind of getting lost and maybe your style and your system. And then when you're playing against, let's say, one of the better teams at the moment in Limerick, it's difficult because their use of the ball is so good. I just spoke to Liam for a couple of seconds before we came on air here, right? And like when you give a really, really good team the ball now in hurling, right, they just hurt you. They don't give it away. Limerick used the ball exceptionally well. Really, really good hurlers, know exactly what they're about. And I certainly don't think whatever tactical system you come up with into the summer, I don't think there'll any system work where you give them the ball. I just don't think that will work at all. I think whatever system you come up with, I think that will be challenged. The second thing is, like, definitely to me yesterday, there was a big difference between ball handling and striking. Like Limerick's was crisp, it was clean, it was pinpoint, whereas like Galway's just seemed to be a little bit off. And we all make excuses this time of the year for we don't know what training blocks are going on, don't know how much hurling is being done, we don't know what they're training on, whether it's astroturfs or whatever it's on, good pitches or bad pitches, and we tend to make excuses. And that's why I suppose when we get to that weekend of the 23rd of April, the excuses are out the window. On the Limerick side, John will certainly be very happy. Like, he came with a strong team. Even the guys who came on played well. He'd be very happy that all his key players, and like what I said last week, like Cian Lynch back at centre forward, massive plus. He's just different gravy, as everybody knows. Possibly one of the best hurlers in the country, and he just makes everything tick. Like, everybody moves well around him. He jumps into those positions and drags players out of position, and there always seems to be space in the forwards. And obviously Peter Casey back as well. And another huge plus would be the form of Shane O'Brien. Very young. He's kind of slipped into the number 13 jersey there. He's a big lad, looks at home. He's able to deal with the physicality of the game. So again, for John, he's becoming a real option there. We don't know yet what the story with Aaron Gillan is. We didn't get any light on it yesterday. My belief is that he will be back at some point, and you'd like to see from Limerick point of view that he will. So from that point of view, you'd definitely be very happy. Limerick looked comfortable. Like, there was maybe one or two patches in the game. Like, as I said, it started very well in the opening quarter, they had 9 points. They were 7 points up at half time. And then by heading into the last quarter, they were 19-12 up. They did lose the next 15 minutes, 7 points to 2, like that piece. And you could say maybe, I don't know how influential, let's say, that period of the game against Clare, Dalo was as well, where they kind of came unstuck. It's like as if, as I said, they were just in control. John rolled on a few subs. Hard to gauge where that is, but from Limerick's point of view, you'd say good position. Looking like now, as I said, playing Westmeath next and Wexford at home, that they're going to put themselves in a position where they can make a league semi-final, and plenty players to come back and plenty players that'll be chomping at the bit and training to try and get some league time to make sure that they get a jersey in the 26 for the championship. It looks like he's building a nice squad. We haven't seen Colin O'Neill yet. He picked up an injury. And as I said, Colin Coughlin there would be well. Look very good. Adam English with well looked very good. As I said, the former Shane O'Brien, Kieran Barry has slotted into the half-back line very well. Micheál Houlihan really good against Clare. So there's plenty options there with some guys coming back. So the green side is good. Very happy. On the opposite side, Henry and Galway, like the team they named, first of all, led you to believe that they weren't going after this maybe as much as they went last year. They were definitely having a look at a couple of players to see, are these in the 20 or in the 26? Probably, namely Tiernan Killeen. He did start at wing back and he was kind of jumping across the half back line. They started with Gerard Mack in the full back position and TJ Brennan probably in the corner. TJ Brennan had a very good campaign with UL. They were having a look there. And then up front, like Martin McManus, Donald O'Shea, probably the two key fellas they were having a look at to see, are these boys in my first 15, first 20 plans. Didn't really work out for some of them in the first half. They didn't have a lot of possession. They didn't use the ball into their forwards well. And look, we've already said that Limerick backs looked at home. Barry Nash spent an awful lot of the game on his own. Kyle Hayes spent a lot of the game out left. He used an awful lot of width, and Limerick's use of the ball was very good. So Galway struggled in the main there and just didn't really work. And I'd say Henry didn't get a brilliant picture. Containment-wise, defensively, they were good. Like, you only conceded 24 points overall against Limerick, which means probably not too bad, and didn't really concede any sort of a goal chance at all. So from that point of view, you'd say, yeah, they passed the test.
Young McManus, Teach, who we like and on the show, and we liked him particularly the last day. He was treated to the Sean Finn show, though, which is not easy when you're trying to make your second start, like, is it?
No, it's definitely not easy. And in a forward line where you're maybe outnumbered a lot of the time against, let's say, smart, seasoned campaigners is always going to be very difficult. I suppose, look, the critical side of us would say that, that he did get one or two nice balls where he should have maybe handled and whatever, and it didn't work for him. And look, as you said, there's loads of people who've kind of come unstuck there. But there's still a question mark about their forwards and getting balls to that good full forward line and maybe getting more numbers to there. And there's a piece of the game for them. Like, you could clearly see yesterday, puck out wise, they went after a side of the field and they put numbers over there. Then Limerick's use of the ball, where they freed up Kyle Hayes coming down the left-hand side of the pitch, like, made it look very ordinary at times. So, yeah, there's certainly challenges there. There's challenges maybe within the system and challenges for them to get their front six right. And I would also say challenges to get, I don't know what the target number of balls to the full forward line with support would be, let's say in a half. It might be, let's say, 15 or 16. There's areas there which they will need to improve on. It would also look now from Henry's point of view that they won't make a league semi-final, which isn't a major problem, right? But maybe from a winning or a silverware point of view, I get this feeling that I'd say there'll be pressure to win the Leinster Championship now. They'll nearly have to deliver that in 2023.
I think it's a must.
Great.
And but is there an element, lads? I might have alluded to it in the column there, Marco, that we saw clear last night. Like, you'll be slagging me there now completely. Only text messaging now. The handbrake is off or the handbrake is on. We're having the crack about it. But is there an element, like, whereas Liam alluded to it earlier, we were in the Gaelic grounds this time last year, and Galway and Limerick, it was a bang match. Like, it was just, come on, you're in Munster, we're in Leinster, I want to see what I have, Henry. Is there an element now where teams are saying, we know what Limerick are, we know how good they are, let's be ready to meet them later on, not now, and not be banging off them now?
I think you're right. I think last year was Henry's first year, first time stepping out of a Kilkenny jersey and going into the oppositions, going into the line then with somebody else. I think Henry himself wanted to make a statement. I'd say he was a very, very big appointment in Galway, huge appointment really, I suppose. And I think that Galway panel last year was hopping out of their skins, and I would say he would have pinpointed that match against Limerick last year as being one to set down the marker. And physically, both teams went at it. I think what you're finding this year is you have a manager in his second season who had an awful lot of players involved with Fitzgibbon, has given them the opportunity, I suppose, to concentrate on Fitzgibbon, and has said to himself, look, it ultimately is championship. Once we avoid the relegation scenario, we'd be happy enough. People will forget about the league. Just once it doesn't upset their morale is the only thing I think that you have to be concerned with. Galway will know they're going to be in the top 3 or 4 teams every year. and it's about getting a performance out of them in championship. But I was in Salthill, the same as TJ. They show lots of signs of plenty of ability, but the way they drift out of games would be a concern for me. Cork took over. Once they took over, they scored 2-3 in 5 or 6 minutes and put the game beyond them. And I know they came back at the end, and a bit like yesterday, they came back at the end again. But Limerick just put the foot on the accelerator again and went out. They brought it back to 2 and they went down and won by 6 or 7. So I think, Dalo, in the overall context, when Galway will have a full panel of players available to them, they'll be a match for everybody. But it's just about keeping the morale as high as possible. And that is, I suppose, the confidence in the man in the line and what he has seen and what he has done as a player himself. He'll know what's going on behind the scenes. But the other thing is Clare definitely did have the handbrake on. There's no point in saying otherwise. They didn't try a yard against Limerick below. And I think you're probably right. They're saying to themselves, do you know what? If we're going to beat Limerick, we just have to do it once. There's no point in trying to beat them twice for your own ego or for your own, feel-good factor or morale in the panel. Ultimately, we were probably all in the Clare jerseys last year when we were playing against Limerick, hoping and wishing they'd get over the line and stuff like that. Not anti-Limerick, just to see, another team winning, I suppose. And I think you're right that the league is serving a purpose for each manager. I think they all have their own plans, what they want to achieve out of it. It's clear to me that Liam Cahill and Pat Ryan probably want to get to the league final at this stage. And I saw the Munster League final. I thought both teams served up a really, really good match, but both of them were, I'd say, 5 or 6 weeks ahead of everybody in terms of their training blocks. Limerick is different this year insofar that they didn't concentrate on the league last year. I think they are certainly more forward this year in their preparations as well. And the question is whether they can keep that going. And I'd say they probably will, but they certainly came with a great run last year. Once they played the last match against Offaly and avoided the relegation, they put their head down and then they concentrated on championship. They are certainly a way more forward this year than they were last year, which I'm a bit surprised with, and I'd be wondering why are they doing that, because they have a couple of extra players back, the Cian Lynches, the Peter Caseys, that weren't involved last year. And like TJ says, we don't know what the story with Gillan is at the moment. Did he get a hat-trick over the weekend, TJ? Is that true, or was he playing? How did he get on the sack over the weekend?
What's the name of the club? What's the name of the club?
Creve Celtic.
Kelly Bacon Rashers, I think, or something like
that. The Desmond League, TJ, is it?
Desmond League, yeah. I was going to stick with hurling for a second, Liam. I was going to just shoot there on.
He deflects away very quick from that, Marco, doesn't he?
Kylie has him. I tell you this much. He's knocked his tail. We'll play the Kylie now.
I've been hearing Murty Brown's, the two of them. Sure, Marco, you want to see him as thick as teeth.
Thick as teeth.
No, I was going to touch on for a second about the structure and, let's say, the formation of teams and how influential it's starting to become. And is it maybe one for a better word, is it stemming, let's say, what teams have been normally very good at in the past? Is it kind of causing a problem for them maybe to transition to the new game? Like, let's say, where you're playing, let's say, without maybe a couple of forwards, you're bringing loads of fellas back. And how much maybe is the Limerick influence in opposition? Is it kind of shagging them up, maybe, for want of a better word? It's kind of...
I think you're right, TJ.
Liam, straight away, Liam, there, you have to engage Kyle Hayes. You can't give him that wing. You have to put Joseph Cooney right half forward and say, pin him back.
Yeah, but I mean, the amount of times yesterday where the ball was poked in and Barry Nash is just picking it up, or they're picking it up and getting it to Barry or out to Kyle, and once they do that, they're gone. You know what I mean? So Limerick were very comfortable in their game plan. They know exactly how they want to play, and they play like that all the time. I'm surprised that teams aren't trying to disrupt that a little bit more. As you said, fire 4 or 5 across the half forward line there and play one inside and flood the line. It has to be better than what we've been served up, because if you stand off them, they'll eat you alive. And it was very, very clear yesterday. And the one concern I'd have with Galway is I don't see them having a real purpose in their play that says they can get quality ball into their inside line. I mean, if Donald O'Shea or these guys are going to flourish, they're going to have to get a much better supply of ball, because Conor Whelan is the only one really that can fight and win for dirty ball. I watched a few of their games, like Galway, Liam Collins and some of these guys. They're real talents coming through now. I really, really like this guy. But like Liam Collins needs a quality of ball. Liam Collins would probably fly as good as Peter O'Brien in Limerick if he was in that position, because the quality of ball he's getting in is of a really, really good standard. But back to Mark's point, the one thing I've really found is, like every team now has 2 or 3 home games in their championship. And you'd be shocked that, when you get a chance to play in your home game for the league, that you wouldn't be saying, anyone that comes in here now, they're going to feel it and they're going to get it. And to see the way Wexford rolled over yesterday and to see the way Galway rolled over, because, with 57 minutes gone, lads, they were 8 points down and they looked washed up. They looked washed up. They could have been below the beach. You know what I mean? Like they were not at the races. So Henry got there was a little bit of late momentum that sort of rescued it a little bit for them, because they came back, they got it back to 2 points. But like up to that, it was pedestrian. It's pedestrian if I've seen Galway in a long time. They couldn't really get to the pitch of Limerick at all yesterday. And obviously, I know Wexford are down a lot, and clearly they don't have anything like the backup. If you don't have Liam Ryan and Lee Chin and Matthew O'Hanlon and Rory McCarthy, who's probably one of the best forwards in the game, they just can't survive without those players. But again, to concede 6 in your own pitch, in your own backyard, as you start to approach and you're heading towards the championship, I'm surprised that teams that are trying to get up to a level aren't really targeting their home matches, especially. And I was shocked with what Galway brought to their home pitch yesterday and with what Wexford brought to their home pitch yesterday, because I would have expected that they'd be trying to put down a marker. So there's big matches coming up for those teams around the corner in April. To qualify, you have to win your home matches, in my view.
Yeah, probably
sorry,
as important. I would say more important maybe for the Munster counties, because you'll get the 2 home games. Obviously, we know Waterford are in trouble. They have to go to Thurles for the home games. But from a clear point of view, the next day against Galway, that's a massive one for me now. There'll still be a big crowd. I'm shouting down the league in one way, but I know well that the Galway crowd will come down. It's a lovely venue to get in and out of. You'll be out of there in 10 minutes, and the motorway is out the road, and it's a huge one. But like that, Liam, for me, from a Clareman's point of view, I'm saying, wow, this one, this is the one now. Win this one. And do you know what, Brian? Grand now to the 23rd of April. Yeah. And that is the problem as well, of course. But I think you're right that the home venue thing should be, and I think from a Clare point of view, it will be. I honestly do. I do. Mark, one of the frightening things TJ said there is they've won 4 of the last 5 All-Irelands, and he says, I think he's building something nicely. And I think I wrote it there today, I think 15 of the 20 scores came from newness. No, what I mean by newness is, Kyle Hayes isn't newness, but Kyle Hayes back at wing back is newness compared to last year. Cian Lynch back is newness from last year. Peter Casey, Shane O'Brien, Michael Houlihan, even I could make it 18 scores out of the 24 because Tom Morrissey took over the free taking near the end. It's scary, isn't it, that maybe 18 scores came from freshness. And I'm not even including someone who I really think is finding his old form is Rich English as well. And what a richness there with Mike Casey probably to come back. That's the scary thing for everyone else.
It is, but they are a quality team. I suppose, like Diarmuid Burns, we don't know what his story is yet. I think there is definitely competition for places as well, Anthony, in the Limerick squad. I mean, they are a very settled team, but there are going to be a couple of places up for grabs, and that always makes it more competitive, and everybody wants to be on the starting 15 if they can in the day of championship. So I suppose Limerick have probably the most successful panel of players right now, and they have ultimate confidence as well. They're very fit, very strong, great hurlers, but it's their use of the ball is the big thing for me. Every time there's a man in a better position, ball is delivered to them. The other thing is the delivery of ball to them is to their hand, whereas I think that other teams out there are striking the ball on the ground, which takes an extra touch to get the ball into their hand. The other thing that they've added to their play is this transfer of ball from their hand onto the hurley now. They're using a hurley stroke, and I think that's
brick flick
to do with that. that's to do with the hand. Well, like it used to be the old brick flick, but I suppose one of the big bugbears at the moment with referees is the hand pass. So I've seen it in Limerick's play, and I don't know, TJ, did you say it to me, Dale? Did you say it to me the last couple of weeks? Somebody said it to me, and I've watched it closely now, is that their transfer of ball is coming off the hurley on a more regular basis, a one-handed hurley. So Limerick are, without doubt, they're constantly evolving and they're upping the game and they're upping the stakes. But I'd agree with Liam, what he said earlier on. If you want to beat Limerick, I think most teams have to engage in 15 on 15 and don't allow a spare man, because they have this beautiful way of giving the ball to the better man all of the time. And, some teams, when an individual gets the ball in his hand, he wants his own score or he wants to be pucking his own ball. There seems to be, it's lack of ego, I suppose. It's just that they want to give the ball to the better player all of the time. That's their instructions, and they carry it out to the letter of the law. And if you're in the opposition camp, you ultimately have to stop the loose man all of the time, because Limerick will funnel it all the time. And that might end up with you having 3 defenders and 3 forwards with 60 yards of space in your own backline. And that's why speedy cornerbacks, your full backline probably need to be your fastest players in the modern game. Whereas in the old days, you probably could get away with a fella who was lacking a bit of toe, maybe a full back. But now, in the modern era, you can't. So...
yeah, that's why I moved back. Dale, what I will say to take a small bit of air out of the balloon there, right, is
stop! You're at this now for the last 5 years.
No, one second. This time last year, like we were saying that Limerick were struggling during the league, right? And we were probably asking questions. I would say it wasn't as bad back then, and it's not as good right now. The last 2 games that Limerick have played, right? I do think you're right in that we had 2 oppositions who didn't fully engage. I think that Galway, let's give Galway credit here now, first of all, right? In the All-Ireland semi-final last year, I thought structurally, tactically, excellent. I thought they got excellent. Right? They got everything pretty much spot on. They knew who to man mark. They picked him up. They left one Limerick player in defence free, right, to get the ball, and they knew who that was. It wasn't Barry Nash, and it wasn't like some Kyle Hayes and stuff, right? So I think structurally they know how to play this Limerick team. And I think your point there about maybe Clare as well the previous time is there is definitely something in not now. We will meet these guys down the road. We know, like, I suppose one of the things we do know about Limerick is they don't do a huge amount differently. It's nearly the same all the time over the last couple of years, just doing it a little bit better as the years have gone on. So I do think rather than going toe-to-toe and having a humdinger of a 70 minutes now and maybe coming off, let's say, whether it's a point up or a point down, wherever it is, kind of feeling either elated or maybe feeling a little bit low, I think the opposition have kind of said, not now.
But the only thing is, TJ, would you not agree that 7 channel was caused them all sorts of problems in that first half? Like, I thought they were allowed get ball into the 7 box and flash it across to the other side in front of Galan. Like, that's the box that hurt them. So I thought I would have expected a lot more awareness from Galway in terms of minding that area, that side of the field, because he could have played a match on his own over there yesterday. Kyle Hayes could.
A good number 7 will do that, though.
Yeah, but I mean,
they have to find Dalo.
Yeah, you have to run the game over there. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think they would have known that. They would have, like Henry would have known that before the game, Liam, like what Kyle Hayes is capable of here. So yeah, like Keenan Fahy was detailed there, but it looked like as if they were going overloading one side. They were trying something, I'd say, which didn't work for them, and they'll probably revert. But I will say, I'll go back to that on semi-final last year, where they put themselves in the game with a chance to win it going down the home stretch. Like, so tactically, they know what to do. Like, so maybe they were trying some stuff yesterday that didn't work. But look, we'll have to watch this space. I guess.
TJ, I have to refer to it like, and I know you were further back from the player than John Kiley, who claimed it was an appeal for a line ball to go his way. And I'm a big fan, and I was lucky enough to coach him for 2-3 years as well, if you include colleges. And Kyle is just an outstanding player. Should have seen red yesterday, no doubt for me.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. I think live, I didn't see it. I knew there was an incident at the far side of the field. Anyone sitting in the stand, but I did see it on television last night. And look, you can't say like it's a clear slap at the hurley. It's out over the line. You could probably clearly see as well last night that the linesman just signalled the line ball up the field at the time, so he didn't see it. Like, so, I think Kyle knew straight away that it was a kind of a bit of a lash out. Look, I can't say no more than that, Dalo. Only that, like, it should have been a card. And to be fair to John, he wouldn't have seen it either, you know. And
to be fair to Sean Stack, I know his Clare connections. I think he's a very good ref. He's up and coming good ref, and I don't think he saw it because Kyle was on a yellow. Yeah. The easy thing was to give him another yellow. You didn't even have to go to the straight red nuclear option. It wasn't really a nuclear option, but the second yellow was an easy decision to make.
And you know what, Dalo? I'm a believer in that from a linesman or a referee's point of view. If you haven't seen it, you can't give it. So
I think this is Mark's point all over again. A quick thing in the ear. We're watching it live on TG Cahir. It's been replayed twice. VAR, my arse now. Go away with your VAR.
Gar, we call it Gar.
Yeah. No, Lar, we call it after Limerick. No, but like a quick thing. Someone sitting in a van outside with TG Cahir on. Yeah, Sean, he has to walk. And that's that. Like, you know, it's not rocket science.
Like look, for that particular incident, it's very easy to make a statement like that, Dalo, as we know, right? But like, as we also know, then, right, is how many incidents are you checking? How many are you going back in every score? Are you looking for something? The tackle in hurling is very, very difficult to define. So if one referee thinks it's a free, another referee might think it's not a free. Is there a little tap of the jersey? Are you going back looking for something? Like, I can also say that, let's say, that Galway got a free against, let's say, Will O'Donoghue, where he got a yellow card, which looks like that was incorrect. Are you going to VAR and that? Like I said, be careful what you wish for here. Like, I
this was one of these ones now that you knew players and crowd were incensed. You know, I was only watching at home on TV, and you could hear the Galway crowd over linesman. No, it's just I just think they're the odd one who say quick check. It needn't even be going. I'm gone to the TMO or gone. Just wait. The ladies' football do it. Just someone in my ear. There is this something more serious here, lads, and it is. And yeah, he needs to get a second yellow at least or a red. Maybe he didn't mean the pull, but it still struck your man across his helmet. So. It was Brian Concannon, I think.
I actually think he was a little bit. I actually think he was a little bit unlucky, Dalo. I think the Galway fellow was slightly bent over. Kyle Moore kind of might have slapped out a little bit, maybe thinking it was going to hit his body. It did happen to catch him on the cage, and to the letter of the law, like if it hit him in the body, would we have been as incensed over it? I don't know. I don't think so, to be honest with it. But there is no doubt in my mind the minute you saw it, and if you're watching that live, and if you have a stand-by referee seeing that, if he just said to Sean Stack, you have to give him a second yellow card. If that needs to be upgraded by the CCCC on a Tuesday, let it be upgraded. But on the occasion, we have to start using the technology that's available to us. And I understand exactly what TJ is saying, that you could be stopping the game for this tackle. We're not into that. It's into one or two or three specific incidents in any one game that we all need to see the right thing happens, I think, with our game. And like any young fella watching that match last night, right? Be it under 12 or under 14, under 16, will kind of half think I can still flake a fella across the head now and get away with it.
Look, it's a fine line.
There's helmets now.
Yeah, well, I will say it's a fine line, right? Obviously, very clear and very specific case yesterday. But we don't want a situation where, like, we have a game at the moment. For me, certainly in the league, where it's two stop starts. Like the energy in the stand isn't there, and let's say the excitement isn't there, and you don't want to deflate that and have fellas throwing themselves down, like Rashford getting handy frees yesterday. Like you got fellas diving in soccer, thinking they're shot. Like we want to make sure that we keep, let's say, the key elements of the game intact, where it's tit for tat, it's up and down the field. Like, as I said, structurally and tactically, we have a game that's morphing a little bit very much into possession, right? And let's say that thrill of edge of your seat, certainly we haven't seen it this year yet in terms of the league. We're all hoping that maybe the one or two really good championship games will stick with us. So I'd be very slow. I'd like, you know, Larry said Arsenal, it's not Arsenal winning the league. But
I tell you, TJ, there's a lot of GA fellas starting to go down easy now as well. Let's be straight about it. There's been a fair few incidents in the GA over the last couple of years where any fella gets a tip of the hurley now on the face guard or the helmet, they are going down. We've seen a good few of those incidents over the last 2 years.
I do, but I'm going to bring up one
particular.
Mark, not that I want to go down this road with you today, but one very quick incident with you with a Cork footballer last weekend or whatever. They got a second yellow card and got sent off, which looked very, very, very harmless, right? Would you agree it was very harmless?
This is Ian Maguire from the VAR.
No, I'm going to ask you one key question here now, right? Is if you go to VAR there, right, and you ask VAR, right, saying, I'm giving a second yellow here for pulling his jersey, right? Can VAR say any different? It doesn't fix it. So you have to be careful.
Yeah. No. If you had VAR last week on that incident, the yellow card would not have been actually given. And we saw it over the weekend in the soccer match between Chelsea and Spurs, where the Chelsea fella got the red card, and the eye in the sky said to him, listen, you need to come over and see this incident again. He pushed him on the shoulder, his hand pushed up and got him in the face, and he rescinded the red card.
Jaw. What are you talking about?
And everybody is saying the same thing. The end decision is still the most important thing. No matter how long it takes to get there, the end decision is the important.
One second. Here's the question. Did Ian Maguire pull his jersey?
I didn't see it.
Yes,
he did.
Yes, he did.
Which was harmless.
It was harmless.
Correct.
So my point is,
you might not have got a change of decision if you went over to the screen. So
thank you, Liam.
You said,
thank you.
Careful what you wish for.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. Look, I'm not with you, Mark, on this now. I was subjected to watching rugby above in the good house in Ina on the booze cruise on Saturday, and the lovely Marina Clancy looked after us very well up there. We had a great day, as did the Griffins in Benlacally, as did the Connor House in Kildysart, as did Murty Browns and Tiernan Og. The great Packy didn't deserve a great day like that, and we had it. I was subjected to watching Bundy Aki from Shra near Dunbeg. Falling over, and it took about 4 minutes to decide that wasn't a try, that he knocked it on. Do we need, for the love and honour of Jesus, we don't need that. Whereas I'm saying, by the time Sean Stack, all I'm saying is, by the time Sean Stack consulted with the linesman on that side, that fell in his ear in the van watching TG Cahir could have said, hit him on the face with the hurley, gone. Jesus, you can't go saying, Ian Maguire, did he go over and look at it on the side? Do you honestly think that's going to happen in hurling?
Oh, no. I just said that. No, I'm saying they fell in the ear and said it's a yellow or it's not a yellow.
So with me, you don't want the Chelsea Spurs situation yesterday.
No, I don't want it.
Absolutely
not. I want the GA to use the technology, right? And that the man above in the box has the power to say to the referee, it's a yellow, it's a red, and he has to trust him. He doesn't need to have to see it himself. He needs to be able to trust him. But obviously, if you want to go the extra step and it comes up on a screen, like the rugby, but I don't think anybody wants that. But in those situations, like yesterday, fill in the ear, say, that's a second yellow or it's a straight red. Because the ref hasn't seen it in blind time.
Anyway, enough about technology. We're not going to start that, Dalo. We're getting to...
Well, it'll come up about 5 more times before July. It's a good thing in September, Liam, because this is always, the two of them are always on this one.
I suppose we're talking about matches in the league and importance, the level of importance. I think the biggest game potentially is coming in 2 weeks' time, though, and it's not at the top. Like the loser of Antrim and Laois is probably going to struggle to get themselves, because if it goes to head-to-head. So I think there's a massive match in 2 weeks' time in Corrigan Park, because the winner of that, I think, whether you're from Westmeath or whether you're from Laois or whether you're from Antrim, you want to be playing against the top teams in the division. I think that's where they think that they'll improve the most. And I think Antrim have made a fair stab at it throughout this league. But, last year, Laois went and turned them over in that head-to-head match. So I think, we're probably talking down the importance of the league, but, I think Corrigan Park will have a real edge to it in 2 weeks' time, because the winner of that match will, I think will be their Division 1 status will be secured, and I think that's a massive match for
unashamedly, last year I said I would hope that Westmeath would win that, that game to keep them in the Division 1 and in the Lee McCarthy, and because the form, and I think Antrim have shown the form, and I honestly hope you're rewarded for that, but you've no guarantee of that. You've no guarantee. And it's a bit like, look, for me, in lots of ways, the most exciting game in the National League was on Saturday in Killarney with Kerry and Offaly. That really counts, because if they're going to progress, they're going to get up there, and even if they take a few beatings, that's the only way you learn. And Offaly came out on top there by a point. They may well meet again in the final of that, depending on maybe the Kildare. Kildare Kerry game will be crucial. But yeah, I agree with you. Looking ahead then, right? At what, Mark, just from a Cork point of view, right? You're top of the league now. Yeah. I'd say you're going to try and win the league, right? Are you any closer to knowing what your championship team will be? And there's 2 rounds of the league to go, unless now you're in the league semi-final and the final.
Yeah, so I think if Clare and Wexford left now, Wexford are coming to town, and they obviously now would be smart enough to getting a fair trimming from yourselves. I think if Cork win one of the 2 games left, they'll probably qualify for the semi-final at least. So I'd say, are they any closer to knowing the first 15? I'd say deep down they probably do know, roughly what they have. I mean, Pat has great experience with all the under-20s, right? All the young fellas. Pat was also involved a couple of years ago with Cian, with the older lads. So he knows their ability. And it probably is no harm that Hoggy and Hannity aren't playing the league matches at the moment. They have done an awful lot of hurling. They have a pile of it under the bit like Ozzie Gleeson, even though I'd say he's a fresher man than them. But we'll say the likes of Ronan Maher now has a lot of hurling played as well. Shamie Callan now, I suppose, is probably the example, the same as Hoggy and Hannity. They have a lot of hurling done.
John Conlon.
And John Conlon, exactly. The manager knows exactly what these fellas will bring to the table. So he'll either say, yeah, they are going to be part of my starting 15, or he say, am I going to give you its fling? And I suppose that is the one key question that Pat will be trying to answer for himself is, will I go all out with young lads, or am I going to blend in some of the experienced fellas as well? But do I think he knows his starting 15? I'd say he's a fair idea what his starting 15 is. Yeah, definitely. Like yesterday, it's a fair
answer now, because on paper, I know looking from the outside and having an awful graw for Cork, sure, you're one of my great friends and all my friends in Cork. I
have a lot of friends in Cork, Dalo.
I have actually. Nice people, John, nice people. But I wouldn't have much of a clue now what the Cork's at. Like, let's say Joyce and Downey, is that your 3 and 6? It looked like it, and then is it though? Do you know? Joyce probably, obviously.
Definitely, I would say. Definitely.
Yeah.
What's the story with Darragh Fitzgibbon?
I have no doubt. He'll be back in about a fortnight's time. Like Darragh Fitzgibbon is, Rob Downey, Darragh Fitzgibbon, Mark Coleman, Alan Cadigan, Hannity, Hoggy, Robbie Flynn, Lehane. They're all on the easy list, I suppose, at this moment in time.
9 or 10 teams down there.
Yeah, but only Hannity really hasn't got some game time. Alan Cadigan as well hasn't got game time. Rob Downey, I suppose, played in the Munster Senior League. He should be back. The funny thing is the fact that having the injuries forces the selectors into playing these young lads. And I'd be very confident that Pat knows deep down what he's starting 15 is. I'd say from the outside,
I would disagree with you, Mark. I would say both Liam Cahill and Pat Ryan, I'd say, are very happy with, let's say, the opening 2 months. I would say both of them have unearthed a lot of options. Maybe there's a lot of similarities between a lot of the players. But I would say, let's say in Tibreri's case, for Liam, he's definitely unearthed a good number of players that can play at 5, 6, and 7. What he's preferred 5, 6, and 7 right now might be questionable. And I go as far as to say the same with Cork, right? I think Pat found definitely an awful lot of players who can play in the forwards. And I would say the mix and actually who plays, I'd say the next month will tell a lot. And I said that they're probably happy with the formation. They're probably happy with the 30-man squad. And I think that I think you're going to see change now. My honest opinion with Pat here in Cork is I don't think he'll go down the road you're going. I think you're going to see some surprises in the Cork setup.
Do you think he'll stick with some experience, or do you think he'll go with the younger lads?
I think there'll be a mix, but I don't think he'll have all. I don't think he'll have all the fellas you named out there. I don't want to pinpoint any one particular individual now. I do think you're going to see change, and I don't think Pat will fully know that yet. I think the next month will tell a lot as he's learning. So I would say, especially in those 2 particular counties, there's going to be a lot of change. I would say, like say, Brian Lohan will probably know 13 or 14 maybe of his first 15 because of where he is, right? The Cork and Tip situation, to me, is definitely different. And as we all know, in Waterford, Davy could do anything.
Yeah, and you know,
but I think you'll see the
Thurles
next day, Tipperary and Waterford playing their championship matches in Thurles. You will see Davy. I'd be shocked if we don't see the Waterford championship team in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, but and Thurles might suit them. Like I do think, you know, Waterford are a very strong running team. You know, in fairness, you know, when Liam and Mikey were there, they've put a lot of energy into that squad, and they play a very, very strong running game. So it'll be interesting to see, for a number of reasons, what that game is like in 2 weeks' time. With, you know, I think it's also going to give Tip a really good chance of, you know, dealing with a very, very pacey team. So I think you'll see a really good. Liam Cahill has made no, you know, he's going after this league, and because I think he'd love another game or two to get into that group, to see exactly who's ready for that hustle and bustle of championship hurling. So as you said, I think Tip and Cork are going all out for the league. And as you said, Tip and Waterford next Saturday week under lights in Thurles, I'd say should be a cracker of a game.
I would actually love to see a Tipperary Cork league final. I'd
be happy enough with that too. Are you okay with that, Marco?
I settle for that, but we'll pay it in Patrick Queen, will we?
We probably owe you about 5 fixtures out this stage anyway.
You can play it in Ennis if you want. We'll give you the field for the day, just to get the field of the place.
Dalo, we won't actually nail our colours to the mast today, because obviously it's going to be evolving all the way to, let's say, our predictions on the 23rd of April. But the challenge of naming Munster 1 to 5 is intriguing.
Oh, incredible.
It's Limerick, Clare. It's Limerick, Clare, and then pick your third.
If you throw it out there to the general public to kind of say around your own kitchen table, have the argument, the discussion, like the 2 to leave out is very, very, very difficult, and there's not a lot in it now. So
2 to leave in, I'd say, TJ, is the thing. We know there'll be 1 in. We have a fair idea there'll be 1 in.
But whichever you do, and I suppose, I think both Pat Ryan and Liam Cahill are definitely around long enough in the game to know that whilst going after the league would be lovely and it'd be great and all that stuff, right? I think where both of them are coming from, traditionally, not being in that top 3, like that's a bigger one for them. Like they'll absolutely make sure that they get into the top 3. So it's a good discussion point. If I was to ask you to name yours today, Dalo, it is a challenge. And as I said, we'll hold.
I'd be happy enough.
We'll hold fire.
You'll be number 1. I'd be happy enough with Lohan and Fitzy filling the 2 and 3.
Would you? And myself and Marco might have something to say on that.
You'll leave your Cork and Tip out. I love it, Dalo.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you one thing. The publicans in Dublin will be delighted with me, Marco, for that, because the worst All-Ireland final that you could ever have, like, would be Tip Kilkenny or Cork Kilkenny. They wouldn't buy a pint, like.
I don't know what that does.
Harsh in the Cork crowd, no. Harsh in the Cork. It's Kilkenny. Kilkenny Tip is the nightmare of Ireland for the Dublin publican, and I tell you.
And I suppose, look, you could make the same argument on the other side for, let's say, the team we're talking about, Micheál Donoghue, we're talking about Dara, where he is in Wexford. We're talking about, let's say, Derek Ling, let's say, and they scored 34 points the weekend. And let's say where Henry's at and what he's trying to do, like with respect to the other counties, there's a big pressure on someone's going to get left out there as well. And I suppose that's why you're asking the question at the start of the show about, are we missing something in the National Hurling League? Because we know there's a league coming that's going to be absolutely just so tight and so hard to get results and ferocious, and whereas this one is definitely the phony wars going on here without a doubt.
Yeah, maybe 2 weeks time, TJ, will be, as they say in the golf, moving day. You know, in terms of, I think we could get a few great games. You certainly see Tip, Waterford, Clare, Galway, Cork, Wexford. Jesus, you're saying, you know, and as Liam rightly said, Antrim Laois could be the biggest one of all in that. Yeah. So I think the next day you could have full-blooded. After that, I worry. I have to say, after that, I worry who will be letting off the handbrake. And as Marco says, handbrake on, handbrake off. You know. So, but look, that is what it is. I suppose there's a massive weekend again for Mr. Landers on the fantasy. Larry, I presume it was anyway. I think his captain is Donald Burke. Is it? Who's your captain?
Yeah, Donald Burke.
Donald Burke.
So there he goes. Jesus, I'm up to 5th. Not too bad. 204. Billy Drillen hasn't done too bad for me as captain, but Landers is beginning to streak away. Shane McGrath, 721. TJ, Liam, myself and yourself. I could tighten you yet, Liam, there for that fourth spot.
60 points.
Larry, I have to say, Larry, a bit like Arsenal at the moment, is treading water.
He's struggling in a major way, isn't he? Yeah.
And as usual, the wooden spoon will be going to the 3.4 million mansion on the Blackrock Road. And Mr. Shawnee McGrath. Like, I mean, come on. Lads, any out there would lend Shawnee a hand with some expertise on the fantasy hurling. Because, like, look at... Yeah, I was just having a look at a few players there for... later on for the championship. Championship is everything. Thanks to Butler Hurleys again, as always. No... Here's a real hurler on the ditch. He's killing us here. Yeah, he's killing. Do you know who he is, Liam?
Not a clue.
Come on, like he's Nana. He's Nana, like he's only inside the town.
Well, he's down as Nana, but he could be from anywhere, I'd say.
he's a man on Twitter too. I gotta love him.
He had loads to say about me when I was managing Tip anyway, I can tell you that, the hurler in the ditch.
Yeah. But in fairness to him, he's doing well. What a score, lads, by James Daly from Hospital Herbertstown. TJ, do you know him? Get ready for the puck.
I do. Yeah, some score in fairness to them.
Some score, 319.
300 points.
Incredible shooting. I don't know. And
Matt,
did he have transfers the rest of the? And in third,
he's in the bronze.
In the bronze, on the Queen, like
on the Queen.
You've just look at. I tell you one thing. You've transformed yourself. I'm going to give you that. Transformed yourself, and right down the line.
Once I started to read. Dalo, once I started to read the rules and started to follow it a little bit closer, I realised that you had a lot of time in your hands over the last couple of years. You were getting all the transfers right. You're on Twitter there, finding out who's injured and who's not injured and all that kind of stuff. So,
I noticed there in the top three, I think Tipper on top, Limerick are second, and Cork are third. That could be the three for the. There could be a clue there for the top three in the Munster Championship.
No, there's a clue.
I like the way you're thinking.
There's a clue there for winning the league, I told you. We'll see you in it. But lads, good show. I suppose we are a bit underwhelmed with the league slightly. We want a few crackers. I think when we get them the next day, 2 weeks' time. But Fogras, TJ.
Yeah, I have one this week. Myself and Marco are taking part in a Cheltenham preview night on Saturday week there before we head across the water.
Jesus, don't mention gambling in case that lad in Cork gets offended again and puts up on Twitter and then all the other langers.
This is kind of more advice based rather than gambling. Yeah.
Don't mention having a fiver or anything, will you?
Yeah, we won't. It's for the Ballybricken GA, Bohermore GA, and Fedamore GA, and there's a few Bob from Milford Hospice as well. So Marco's got a good bit of homework done. I know he's been talking to some key people in the industry recently, and he's got some really, really good information that he's going to share. So if anybody wants to come along on Saturday the 11th in the Hunting Lodge, there will be a bit of crack. Peter Maloney, the guy who looks after Honeysuckle, is going to be there on the night as well. And Marco's also, I just have a little bit of advice for Peter. I'd say bring the checkbook because he has one or two foals that will just be right up your street, Peter.
I do. I come here. When you have a fella like him sitting beside you and I mind him, TJ, whatever, you can get the Heineken into him, will you?
Come here, Marco. A great AGM for the Come On Racing last Monday. Again, the Fitzgeralds and the Woodlands outdoing themselves, and they give you an awful feed of food as well after the AGM. I never saw a man to wallop pizza like it.
They fed us beforehand and they fed us after, in fairness to them. And the one thing is that when we'll have our Cheltenham winner, we have to go back to the Woodlands in a day. I tell you, Conor Fitz and the team down there are just brilliant people and so hospitable. And we met a couple of nice people there from Kilkenny as well, Dalo on the night, telling us exactly that they'll be back. There's life without Cody. So I suppose, look, the big thing out of the AGM was that there were so many members logged in for it, which was fantastic and shows that there's probably a great appetite again for next year. And the big news really is that we have 3 horses in training with William Mullins next year, and we're going to have 2 new horses with Jim Bolger, and the membership has been left at €200. So it's open to new members. So anybody who wants to join, just go onto the Come On Racing Club email. Just Google Come On Racing and join for £200. That covers you from the 1st of March to the end of February next year. And for anybody who's an existing member, your membership is due on the 1st of March, and there's going to be it'll be very easy to re-register yourself, as the man says. It's only go in and click a few buttons, but we'll be sending out a video of how to do that. So it's all good, it's all positive, and well done to you, Mr. Chairman. Your first time chairing it, and you did an excellent job in town. You opened it and closed it very professionally.
In between pints of Heineken.
I think Dalo too, just to give a mention, a great stalwart was but late arrested Nina.
Yes, Liam,
on Saturday morning. Mick Burns. He was a wonderful hurler. Obviously he's the holder of 5 All-Ireland titles with Tip and 8 Munster titles, which is certainly a rarity in our neck of the woods. So again, just to acknowledge, he's a really strong hurling family. Great stalwart with his own club, Nina Oak, and obviously done great things for Tipperary. And I know he got a lovely send-off on Saturday morning in Nina. Very, very big crowd turned out. So just, I suppose, condolences to all of the Burns family.
Yeah, well said. And also hurled a bit of club hurling in Dublin, I think, with the Fogs, or I think it was the Fogs, Liam. Was that right? I think he played with.
I think so. Yeah,
he won a Dublin championship as well, which is kind of, I suppose, not unique for that time. But if it was now, we would be saying, as you said, totally unique. And rest in peace to Mick. I just to acknowledge a few callers to the pub over the weekend. I had a large Tipperary contingent on Friday night. Yeah, I had 2 of the Broslan brothers.
Oh, you were treated.
I had Eamon Kelly. I had Mr. Conor Gleeson, your former teammate, all together with Tony Considine, TJ, your old manager, my old selector. There was a lot of songs sung on Friday night, and a couple of buses on Saturday as well. We lads from West Cork, lovely lads. Only got to meet them for a few minutes because we were going off. Normally the buses are coming here now, but I was going the other way. And later on that evening, we had a crew from a mix of Laois and Dublin. I think Declan O'Dwyer, who would have won league medal with the Dubs in 11, was here. So sorry to miss them, but they were doing most of West Clare. I think they just landed in for a couple and enjoyed the crack. So just to acknowledge those. And yeah, good show, lads. Anyone, we 2 weeks' time will be our next show. So that'll be the Monday of Cheltenham week, I think, with us. So we will dabble in a little bit of horse racing that day. And the lads, the 2 experts, especially here now, Mr. Sheedy, whether he be on or not with us that day, would have a fair knowledge of that game too. But
he does.
I'll be lapping it up. All I'll be doing here is trying to serve out the pints and keep it going. And we'll be able to have the crack for what is a wonderful week. Are you going, TJ? You are?
I'm definitely going for a couple of days. Myself and Marco have 1 or 2 little spots we'll be kind of frequenting on Tuesday and Wednesday night. So we will let GA people know close to the time where we'll be hanging out if anybody wants to say hello. And just one other thing before you go, Dale, there's a big show on this week on TG4 on the great Liam Sheedy, Lake Regale. Always a great show. Looking forward to it, Liam. So I suppose obviously well done, and let's see what the show brings. You don't have anything kind of breaking for us that happens on the show, right? No?
It's all about Portrush. It's all about Portrush winning the 7s.
Oh, is that okay? And just they were fair good at the 7s. Huh?
He was deadly at that flag.
I know. Look, it's a nice thing to do. It's nice for the family. And look, as I said, it's you're always worried that hopefully it turns out well. But yeah, look, we're very lucky. A great family here in Port, and a great village here in Portrush, and a great community. And I was lucky enough to get a chance to manage my own lads at minor and at senior, and get a bit of success with them, which is always nice. And it's always good to know that your parish and your club are behind you. So hopefully to get an insight into that. And in fairness to you, Dalo, you came down in 2012, so we got the All North Championship for us, which was massive at the time. So
huge.
Hopefully it comes across well. Yeah, and look, it's sprinkled with a bit of sadness too. Obviously, Dad died very young, and I lost Jimmy at 47. So there's that aspect to which you'd love to have had him down watching those matches over the years, and I'm sure he would have got massive enjoyment. But I'd say there was probably a party in heaven too. In fairness to him, there'd be no fear of it.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
You're being good company with Jimmy Sheedy, Dalo. He was a good man.
I'd be working behind the bar on Thursday night. We'd have you up loud, blasted out by, I'll tell you here. You'll be on in the lounge in the bar, even though there hardly be too many in the lounge now on a Thursday night. But we'll have our usual 4 or 5 in the bar anyway, and we'll look forward to tuning in. And thanks for coming on with us today, Liam. Delighted to have you. And the other 2, will you get their heads down and start studying hard and feck that lad that tweeted about is all about gambling on that show. Jesus, gambling. My mother, God be good to her, she was alive. I'm not going near them bookies. But look, we don't be given any. We like a bit ourselves. We like to study the farm. We enjoy national hunt racing and a bit of flat racing. That's all. Thanks, folks. Over and out.
All right, lads. Have a good week. Talk to you.
See you, Liam.
A grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lads.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.